If you're anything like me, you're always looking for games that have great physics and lots of things to destroy. Over the years, I've only found a handful of games that do both of those things well, and TearDown is definitely one of them. I'm Jay from Cubold Gaming, and today I'm going to be giving you a brief look at the early access destruction game, TearDown. I've had my eye on this game since it was released, and after playing it for a while, I wasn't disappointed. Since it's still in early access, there's a lot that's subject to change. The goal of this video is to show you what the early access currently holds and help you decide whether or not the game is worth it for you. The first thing that almost everyone is interested in the most is the crazy destruction physics, so I'll start by discussing those first. Almost every single voxel is destructible, and that, combined with the detailed environments, creates an amazing playground to mess around in. The maps that are currently in the game are actually pretty impressive and diverse, so you can tell that a lot of work went into each map. To give you an idea what it's like, houses will have several layers of materials in the wall, starting from the drywall on the outside, then the wooden structure of the building on the inside of the wall, and then some sort of siding on the outside. Some structures are made of brick, which is harder to break, and you'll need some sort of explosive or vehicle to get through it. Weaker materials such as wood or glass are easy to break with a sledgehammer. Metal can be destroyed using a blowtorch, and there are tons of other materials of varying hardness. Pixels realistically break and fall apart as they're destroyed, leaving lots of rubble in your path. Fire spreads through wood and slowly destroys blocks, causing chaos and major lag spikes. There's so much potential for things to go wrong when everything can be destroyed, which makes every mission feel different. The game gives you a variety of tools to work with, ranging from your faithful sledgehammer to explosives. Scattered throughout the level are different types of vehicles such as sports cars or construction vehicles. The physics of the vehicles are actually pretty decent, but they seem to fall apart quite easily. Many of the vehicles, such as cranes and forklifts, have parts that you can move up and down, giving you even more ways to destroy the terrain. Vehicles and objects will sink deep below the water if they aren't made of a buoyant material. One thing that you should note is that gravity seems to work rather oddly in TearDown. You can destroy a building to the point where one single pixel is holding the entire thing up, and it won't break until you destroy that pixel. This is contrasted with the fact that certain items you can pick up are heavier than each other. Weight only exists for objects you can pick up, but when it comes to the terrain, they basically can float indefinitely until you destroy part of them. I'm sure that most people watching this are familiar with games doing that in their physics, but I kinda wish things would collapse when they aren't structurally sound. It's a very minor complaint, and that particular aspect doesn't affect gameplay very much at all. When it comes to objects you can pick up, there are many different uses for them. Some are propane tanks that explode on impact, while others are simply broken pieces of buildings that you can use to destroy things that are out of reach. As far as the physics go, TearDown has some of the best voxel physics I've ever seen. The main way to play TearDown is with the campaign mode, which I think works incredibly well with the destruction mechanics. The idea of the campaign missions is to pull off some sort of heist, whether that be stealing small objects or destroying buildings. The way the heists work is that there will be several stealable objects around the map, and stealing any one of those starts a 60-second countdown. When the countdown hits 0, the police arrest you and you lose. The goal is to create a path to each objective by any means necessary, and then escape in your getaway vehicle. The path you take and the way you make the path is entirely up to you. You can level every single building using a vehicle, or simply build bridges with your board tool. The game offers you several optional objectives for each stage, challenging you to steal even more items. It forces you to think outside the box, and use your tools to complete the challenges effectively. Playing the campaign is also the only way to unlock new maps. There are currently 5 maps, and I have yet to unlock 2 of them, but the 3 I've played so far are incredibly good. Each map has a ton of replayability, and with 5 maps, I think it'll be hard to get bored while playing them. Each map also has several campaign missions on them, starting out easy but progressively getting harder. The further you progress in the campaign, the more tools you unlock. It does give you a good sense of progression, so you'll feel like there's a reason to continue playing. Overall, I think the campaign is a lot of fun, and I think it works perfectly with the destruction mechanics. In sandbox mode, you can literally just do whatever you want with unlimited ammo and unlimited consumables. There aren't any rules in sandbox, so you can destroy everything without consequences. Many people will only get Teardown just for the sandbox, but the downside is that you still have to play the campaign missions. This is something I'm not really a huge fan of. I really wanted to try out other maps and tools, but I have to play the campaign for a while to unlock them. You won't be able to jump straight into the sandbox and use everything, but rather have to play for a long time just to access everything. Sandbox is an amazing game mode and holds tons of hours of fun, but I think that they should allow you to play with all the tools rather than unlock them all. That's really the only complaint I have about Sandbox though. The worlds in Sandbox are set up almost exactly like the campaign, but they don't have anything to steal. With a world as fun to destroy as Teardowns, the Sandbox mode seemed like a natural addition to the game. There's not a whole lot to say about Sandbox other than the fact that you can just destroy everything. I think that if the entire game was just the Sandbox, then it would still be worth buying. I want to touch briefly on what I think is a big negative for the game, and I'm talking about the performance. With so many voxels being destroyed at once, you'd expect it to run at least decently, and most of the time the game does. However, the performance seems to slowly devolve into an almost unplayable state. This is especially evident in Sandbox, but it still happens often in the campaign. The odd thing is that my CPU and GPU don't seem to have any usage spikes when the lag happens. The frames get lower the longer you spend in a single map, and eventually it just turns into a slideshow. There doesn't even have to be a lot of destruction for the lag to happen either. Sometimes the lighting in a building will cause the frames to drop drastically. The game's frame rate is also locked at 60 frames, which was already kind of annoying to begin with, but when the game runs at 10 FPS, it kind of forces you to restart the map. The gameplay is awesome, but I wish it was a bit more optimized. Teardown is great for an early access game, but the performance could definitely be improved. Despite the frame drops, I think the game is still worth buying. It doesn't feel unfinished like many other early access games. If you're still on the fence about buying Teardown, you can be sure that the game is just like you see in the trailers. You won't be disappointed with the game, so I definitely recommend it. If you found this review helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to Cuboid Gaming. I also want to mention that we have a gaming podcast called Cuboidcast, which I'll link in the description below. Thanks for watching, we'll see you in the next video.